Hello, my fellow seekers. Welcome to Into the Work, therapy for empaths, seekers, and the intuitively driven, where you have front row seats to therapy sessions and expert interviews that will help you define the important work that you're here to do. So I guess you actually have something better than front row seats. You practically have a seat on my couch. That's right, you will have unrestricted access to actual sessions with real people, exploring real life issues. You will continue to be inspired by powerful conversations with experts and healers that might just share exactly what it is that you need to hear to get unstuck. I am Michelle Pauverman. I am a recovering people pleaser and former anxiety-driven empath, turned now mostly grounded psychotherapist and intuitive coach. I have been helping people for almost 20 years manage their limiting beliefs and anxiety to finally stop the self-sabotage and step into their gifts. I created this podcast, Into the Work, to give you a place to learn more about yourself and give you actionable strategies to finally move those roadblocks holding you back so you can go for what you want. Above all else, my hope is that this podcast is a catalyst for your awakening. If you're listening, you've already taken a step towards getting off of autopilot, and our next steps together will be taken episode by episode, waking you up to the possibilities, the new ways of thinking and being, so that you can stretch into that next level of your story. The spark has already been lit, and my friend, this is a journey from spark to brilliance. So together, let's light a fire. Hello and welcome back to the show. Today we are talking about raising your vibration, reconnecting with magic, and re-experiencing that energy that you might be missing right now. Now more than ever, it is so important for us. Now more than ever, it is so important for us to be able to hold a vision from our hearts and not our fears, and then acts accordingly. But this requires a deeper connection to yourself, a deeper connection or reconnection to your higher vibrational source, right? So here's the scoop. In this episode, part 1, we are going to explore tapping back into your intuition, incorporating the 3 C's, I'm calling them for this episode. And that is just crystals, cards, like oracle cards, and your clairs, so clairvoyance and your clairaudience, taking actions, as well as taking actions that continue to replicate joy in your life. So those are the 3 kind of biggies that we're going to hit today. Next week in part 2, we're going to explore how you can work with energy more often in your life, boundaries that will help multiply your joy, and embracing magical thinking and some things you can do to support you in that. So lots and lots of really good stuff here. And now interwoven into these episodes is just some science from the book Why Woo-Woo Works by David R. Hamilton. I wanted to add a little bit of, or sprinkle a little bit of his wisdom from that book, so that you can absorb some of that info as we talk about why woo-woo actually is so important to your well-being and so important for you to get back in alignment. And that's what a lot of my episodes tend to talk about, right? So get ready to wake up your own magic and your own woo happenings, because you are a spiritual being, my friend, and you are here to radiate and you are here to create as much as possible. You literally have free will on how you choose to show up in this life. So let's jump in on some choices you can start making today to feel better. And also, as we begin, I want to say that most people in this field of mystery and woo, we typically share with you when we talk about raising your vibration. There's 3 or 4 things that you're going to hear most people talk about. And I say that because they are valid and very important. I'm going beyond that and exploring some other topics with you. But I do just need to, out of due diligence, I just need to mention them here. And so I'm just going to say what you will find as very valid and important things to raising your vibration is connecting with nature, number 1. Really important to connect with nature. practicing gratitude. I have talked a lot about this in multiple episodes on what that does to your energy system. Expressing creativity through dance and music and art or writing. That is a huge vibration, raiser upper, if that's a word. And as well as eating high vibrational foods, eating whole foods and things like that actually do affect your vibration. And the same would go for eating junk food, right? It lowers your vibration. Those are all powerful ways to reconnect with yourself and raise your vibration up. But today I do want to highlight these other activities and give you something a little different. So let's jump into step number 1 on my list today. And that is tapping back into your intuition. And if you feel like you might not be capable of quieting your monkey brain long enough to be able to access your intuition, or perhaps you just have no idea how to do any of this, but you just know that you feel drawn to it, there has to be another way to live, right? There is an episode I'd love for you to listen to, and that's episode number 19, The Empath's Intuitive Awakening. And these are tips to clear the path to your intuition. We dive into 2 most common ways people really block their intuition and why it's crucial to heal these barriers. And I give you really cool exercises for you to work on opening up your intuition. So make sure you listen to that episode. But as far as utilizing your intuition to raise your vibration, I have one thing to say to you, my friend. If you do not play, you cannot win, right? So if you're ignoring, and if you're not part of the process, if you're not opening up to it, if you're not having conversations with it, if you're not bringing it into your present, you're probably bypassing a lot of stuff that's literally going on that you're just ignoring, not tapping into. So in other words, if you've lost your mojo, it really is time to remember that you are a magical being. There is no better wake-up call than a good old can't make this shit up intuitive hit that reminds you you are connected to something massively greater than you. And you can have a relationship with the universe with this knowing that everything is synchronicity and allowing yourself to be in awe. So your intuition could help you with mundane things. When you're walking out the door and you hear in your brain, grab a Band-Aid, and so you do. And then before you know it, your kid outside bites it in the driveway and starts bleeding. Sometimes it alerts you of danger. Sometimes it's telling you a wrong move to not make it work, or something you should do instead. It feels so good when you listen to it and you're rewarded with that wink from the universe that basically says, I told you so. And that happens all the time. But it is an intimate relationship that takes some nurturing, and it grows with your trust and faith. It requires, your energy to show up and listen and pay attention and be open to it. You're constantly communicating with the universe already about which choices you make, about the preferences you have, but also by when you listen to your guidance and open yourself up to trusting and believing in it. That really can be the on switch to getting back on board. A good way to start is to get quiet. Take a deliberate action step like committing to meditating or literally just saying out loud to your guides, all your helpers, all the spiritual beings and helpers that you have. You're just kind of saying out loud to your higher self, to yourself, I am open. Opening up to conversations with your helpers can also signal to them that you're open. So literally saying, I am open to receiving, please deliver to me information in the best way that I can receive it. There is nothing too small and nothing too big for you to ask for either. I talk to mine every day. Literally, if I want a parking space, I'm talking to somebody. Sometimes it's good to start small by just setting little setups where you can receive some information. So for instance, often at the end of most of my classes that I teach, especially Reiki, or I'm doing anything intuition-wise, I tell people who are leaving and getting ready to go out to their cars, if it's a live event, to set the intention now and ask their guides that the first song they hear when they turn on the radio, when they get in the car, will have an important message for them. And I love getting those text messages when they arrive home and they're like beside themselves of how crazy the song was and how the messages were so insane. That's the magic, right? Is really opening up to it and playing a role. That's why I say, if you don't play, you can't win, right? So like you have to play a role. You have to be open. You have to set signals that you want this, you want to receive this. And working with your guides is supportive to your relationship with your intuition. So they use your senses to communicate with you. And your intuition, as your sixth sense, is an important part of that navigational tools that you have, right? So I'm also a fan of practicing the ask and receive method, which is a method I created to utilize the intuitive content of your emotions to help guide you in making decisions or simply just to gather information as a way to clear and heal the body and the mind of trapped emotions that cause illness and emotional dis-ease. So I have a freebie that you can snag that will walk you through the process that can be game-changing. It can be so, so helpful. So check the show notes and grab it at the end. However, asking and listening is a great way to strengthen your clairs. And we'll talk about the clairs and what they are, and they're all the different ways you receive intuitive information. So we're going to now jump into those 3 C's for deepening your connection to intuition and raising your vibration. So when we look at the clairs, again, these are avenues in which you're receiving information. There's ways you receive information. And by the way, you might know these very well, and you're like, oh, I'll just skip past this. But here's the thing, just hearing the vibration of me saying these words right now literally are just sort of like they're tuning you in, they're tuning us together. We both have information on this. Just talking about it and hearing about it reminds you about yourself. It reminds you about your deeper self, your true self, your inner self as an intuitive, empathic being. So starting off with clairvoyance, this is where we're able to see, receiving intuitive information through mental images, visions, or symbols. Some people who have clairvoyance, I'll even stretch it to say that you're seeing colors as symbols. A lot of my students who come in, not a lot, but there are a few students who come in who literally their gift is seeing color. And so they have to learn to develop a language with, okay, it means this when I see this symbol, this color, right? We look at the symbolism and we create a common language between us and our guides and God, universe, all the things you want to say. So it's our way of receiving information still when you see colors. So some people might really like to hear that. And so when you're clairvoyant, you're receiving these images and they are giving you that psychic information, that intuitive information. And again, just tapping into some of these psychic ways that you experience feeling and sensing as we'll move on and knowing, all utilize your intuition as well, right? So this intuition is a great pathway. So when you start practicing and opening up to these and setting intentions with these and paying attention, you're also kind of also boosting your intuition and you're definitely raising your vibration. So we have clairvoyance, which is clairseeing. We have clairaudience, which is clear hearing intuitive messages, sounds, words, either internally or externally. And I just want to say that a lot of times people think that this means like they're going to hear this deep, dark, booming voice that comes from outside of them, and that's kind of scary. And while some people do experience clairaudience as an external voice or sound, that many people experience it almost as if, they're using their own voice. It can be an internal experience. And so sometimes that's why you'll hear people say, I'm trying to figure out if I'm making this up or not, right? Or I feel like I'm making this up. Because it uses your voice or it uses your imagination and it uses all your own senses, then you're starting to question. So you're just really practicing to get better at being able to decipher. And then that does happen. You will be able to decipher what's yours and what's not yours. What's coming in is, that's not a thought process. It's not analytical. Like intuition doesn't come in like A plus B equals C. Intuition is like, zoom, you get straight to C immediately. It's like intuition hits you fast. It isn't a thought process. It isn't like, I should do this and then tomorrow that. And then I think that going to that star will be better. That's not necessarily intuition. Intuitive hits really happen kind of like, don't go there, right? Or you need to go here. And so it can help us to recognize we're using our thinking brain or we're just receiving. So far, we did clairvoyance, we did clairaudience, which is hearing. And the next one we're going to say is clairsentience, which is just clear feeling, right? So this is sensing emotions, energies, physical sensations intuitively. This is the empaths. Every empath has this. And I like to say, one of the things I learned from one of my mentors is that every empath is psychic, but not every psychic is an empath. So if you are an empath, for sure, if you really feel like that aligns with you, you're likely able to pick up on any one of these, or one of them, or all of them at different aspects. Like sometimes I have the clairaudience, but then the following week I have clairsentience, or I actually always have clairsentience, but the clairsentience is also can be a way that you know you're receiving messages. And I just mentioned this because it's a popular one that's pretty cool. And that is that when you're experiencing that clear feeling, right? Sensing emotions, energies, and physical sensations, you can experience like pins and needles going down the body. That's sometimes when I was just starting with receiving mediumship, it was sort of like just pins and needles on one side. And that's, I've had clients and students that have experienced, their right leg starts to vibrate or, it gets pins and needles in it. And that's a yes. And then a no is this other experience. And so they can use their body and their sensory feelings in their bodies to get a yes or a no to questions. Now, claircognizance, which is clear knowing, is just having that sudden insight or knowledge about knowing something, but you don't know how you just know, right? And so this one's really common. And if you're someone, I'm sure you've had experiences where you're like, I know who's calling, right? Someone's calling, that's my mother, and you pick up the phone, you just know. And it's her, right? That is your claircognizance. That is your clear knowing. And so we also have clairalliance, which is smelling. So smelling scents and odors that have no physical source, but carry intuitive significance. Sometimes I have been places where I just start fiercely smelling cigarettes. There's not a cigarette in the room. There's nothing like that happening. And so I have to learn to try to look at, okay, who is this? What is this? Why am I experiencing this? And just be open to learning that, whether it's symbolic almost in a way, but it is something that's happening that I have to open up to. And you might have a scent that you are smelling that doesn't actually make sense that you're smelling it. And that can just be a message from beyond, a message from, someone coming in and wanting to give you a message, or just someone wanting you to let know they're there. And as we get into the less common ones, there's a couple more, and that is clairgustance, which is clear tasting. And that is tasting something intuitively, like you know that there's no reason for you to have this taste. It's often associated with a memory or a message. So, you're remembering, oh my gosh, this is reminding me of this time. So usually there's some associated message with it. Oh, I'm tasting this, and then it cues you into a memory or cues you into a message. And clairtangency, which is clear touch, which is really cool. It's sensing information by touching an object or person, also known as psychometry. And it is the way that people can hold an object and tell you about what, is connected to this object. Perhaps it was a person, or perhaps it's something else, a message. And so just to remind you that there are all these ways for you to tap into all these different senses that you have. And now maybe you knew this or maybe you didn't, but now you can kind of look at, okay, like what's clear seeing? Like, am I clairvoyant? Because I'm sitting here and I feel like when I'm with this person, I can almost to the distance, I can kind of see like maybe a movie playing or some kind of image around this guy wearing this thing. And, And then you could kind of like play with it and say, hey, can I just play with this kind of vision that I'm having right now and ask you if it means anything to you? And just, explore it. And it's really fun. It's same with the rest of your clairs, whether you're hearing messages and sounds, you can even practice like turning up the volume on the sounds that you're hearing. Sometimes I find that things trying to come through, if somebody or something is coming through, sometimes it's a little muffled. And so you can actually play with the volume. So there's all these fun ways to kind of open yourself up to this magical connection. This sixth sense that you have can really open you up when you start opening yourself up to the psychic stuff. The next step in charging up your vibration, I want to talk crystals. Crystals have existed millions of years in the earth, collecting frequencies and absorbing consciousness. I mean, they have, if you think about it, millions of years. These have been around beyond us, before us, right? David Hamilton points out in his book, Why Woo-Woo Works, the Research Institute of Technology in Japan published in a very prestigious journal called Nature that the formation of quartz crystals deep inside the earth, close to the core, powers up the magnetic field of the planet and protects us from harmful cosmic rays. Meaning life on planet Earth simply couldn't survive without these crystals. So regardless of people's opinions on whether or not crystals heal humans or have some major impact on humans, they certainly have magnificent healing properties for the earth itself. He makes a bunch of cool references. It's a really cool chapter in the book, a lot, and I won't get into all of them here, but he makes some really cool references that he makes how, for instance, following an earthquake, when the earth's crust slips along a fault line, there's the crack, and following the earthquake, quartz crystals start to form along the fault line as the crust is cooling, binding the two sides of the cut together like internal sutures, healing the earth's wound. Seriously. How can crystals not be considered medicinal to us, humans who also live and thrive off this energy, right? They are working so hard to heal the earth. Don't you think they possibly could be working hard to heal us too? Hamilton also talks about the numerous studies on crystal healing's impacts on plants and being used on humans to facilitate mental and emotional and spiritual shifts. So if you don't have any crystals, I'm going to tell you to run to your nearest crystal shop, a metaphysical shop, and intuitively just select a few that you feel drawn to. I do like to recommend everyone has some clear quartz and some selenite. They are considered to be the most powerful crystals for cleansing other crystals because they are thought to be self-clearing, self-cleaning. You can use these crystals to cleanse other crystals, charge them up, place them on top of and next to each other. And you can leave them together for as long as you like, but some recommend leaving them overnight. So if you get a clear quartz or some selenite, you can pop them on top of your other crystals or put your other crystals on top of them. That clear quartz is sort of known as a master healer and is considered to be the best crystal to use to amplify all your crystals' powers. You can play around with placement and create crystal grids around the room. But crystals are, for sure, such a beautiful healing. And I do believe crystals work in such a way because they are working so much with energy. It's literally what they do. We use crystals in technology. Your Wi-Fi, the fiber in the Wi-Fi, that creates the Wi-Fi is made of crystals. In fact, in the book, he also goes on to talk about how crystals exist in our brain, how crystals exist in our bones. We're, again, all connected here, but it's such a beautiful way for you to up your vibration. Some people will put crystals in necklaces and do things like that. So you can choose a crystal intuitively, but also knowing and understanding kind of what the characteristics or the energies that this crystal particularly amplifies. You can go by color, but you can learn all that. Usually there's like an explanation to the crystals and the type of crystals they are. And that's always helpful. But you can play around with the placement of grids around the room and really just try to create some sacred space for yourself that charges you up. So if you have like a room that you like to go meditate in, or you just like to get away, you want to close the door and a big sign that says, mom's working or whatever it is for you, I highly recommend putting some crystals in there. Now, last is the third C, which is cards. And by this, I mean oracle cards or tarot cards. So if you have not explored this, I highly recommend purchasing oracle cards or tarot cards that come with a book to describe the cards. Now, cards are a fantastic way to create some sacred time for you, sacred space, connect with yourself and divine guidance. Each of these cards includes imagery to help tell a story. Much of the imagery on the cards is symbolic. Tarot cards have been using this imagery for centuries. In fact, I don't know if you know this, but this I actually just discovered, but tarot cards were created in Italy in 1430. Tarot cards were originally used for playing card games, but over time they evolved into a tool for divination and self-reflection. But the first documented use of tarot cards for divination even dates back to 1780. So, they've been around for a long time, and they didn't have a bad rap back then, by the way. It was much later that they started getting known for black magic and darkness, or somehow if you use them, you're going to bring evil spirits in. And so I know, and this is, if you have a belief that does not support your use, 100% I support you in that, and that is fine. But please know these are literally just pieces of paper with artwork on them. However, it's the relationship that you create with the cards, the relationship you create with your guidance, with source, with God, right? This is about creating the magical experience of receiving messages about your growth and development as a soul here, much like simply just asking for intuitive guidance and receiving it. This is just paper with pictures on it that help you do that. Sometimes I will just pull a card and have people play around with the imagery and just say, hey, what you look at this card and what do you see? What's the story you could come up with of how this reflects your life right now and what the message of this card is for you to move forward? What do you need to do? And sometimes that's fun to figure out on your own, but I do always recommend to have a helpful, good companion book. The book can actually make the cards incredible if it's like an intuitive, beautiful written book. I often recommend, and if you know me personally, I have probably already told you this, I often recommend the Mother Mary Oracle cards by Alana Fairchild. I have kept this woman in business, seriously. I have recommended these cards to so many people and it's never let anybody down. The link will be in the show notes. I have an Amazon link for the show notes if you're interested. But these cards, I discovered these cards. I was in line. I was in Northampton at the time with a friend, and we went into this metaphysical store, and we were looking around at different fun stuff. And then as I was getting in line to purchase something, I was getting a magnet, this really cool magnet for doing emotion code. And then I stopped and looked over, and there were a bunch of cards laying there. And I was like, oh, it was kind of like pick a card, have fun. And the book was there waiting. So that was a good way to spend my time in line, right? So I picked up the card, pulled up the book, opened it up, and started reading. And when I tell you the whole body experience that I had, it was the most beautiful card. I felt like I was just receiving this hug. It was amazing. And I started bawling. And by the time I got to checkout, because I had a couple people in front of me, I think I had tears. It was like I couldn't help myself. I had tears running down my face. I was like, thank you, trying to check out. I'll take some of these cards. And I grabbed a deck. And he was like, are you okay, man? He was like a young kid, kind of like a little overwhelmed by the fact that this woman's crying in line. And I have never, ever had a bad reading. These cards are beautiful and they really speak to your heart and they really are very supportive and loving. So my last tip to increasing your vibe and feeling magical again is to take actions that continue to replicate more joy, okay? This is an investment. Your time and your energy and your focus are investments. And so you want a good exchange for that investment. For example, for the next few days, if you go on social media, I want you to either search for people you want to follow that are positive and inspiring, or like and follow only positive and inspiring posts or reels that come across your feed. You can find me at Michelle Poverman, and I promise not to let you down, or I promise not to bring you down, but let the algorithm do the work for you to be surrounded by positive, inspiring messages. Whenever people tell me they have to get off social media, it's such a toxic place. Many times that will tell me, but it will tell you where you have placed your energy and attention. So if that's how it feels, then that's really good information for you to look at. Well, the algorithm, right, is setting you up for this. Or maybe you're just getting involved with people who really don't feed your soul and bring you up, and it's time for you to switch where your attention goes on social media. So in fact, you may have heard me say this before, but your external world is a mirror for your internal world. So if you're expecting the worst, you will see it in numbers. This is the universe's algorithm. This is the universe's algorithm. And you need to program it for magical occurrences. So expect magic, take actions that set you up to receive this magic, and then watch it replicate. That's the investment. But if you invest in your precious resources, if you invest these precious resources in things that bring you down, you will watch that replicate. So here's some thoughts that I'm just going to roll off, right? Create sticky notes with magical beliefs about amazing things that are going to make happen, and place them around wherever you hang out. So you are constantly keeping focused on the good stuff. Again, a good investment. Turn some daily passwords into an abundant statement or a goal, right? Then you have to type that in every day, maybe, right? Especially doing something, one or two things that you do frequently. Again, this is replicating a positive action that leads to joy, to reminding you to stay focused. Taking steps to get aligned with a goal that is so inspiring is a fantastic way to raise your vibe. Focusing on your strengths. Doing a high five checklist at the end of the day every night. It can take you 5 minutes with what you accomplished, why you're a badass, keeps you focused on the good. Even if it was a nap, I want you to high five yourself. Even any self-care activity actually gets you extra points. And so these are all these different ways that you can really invest in the positive. So that's it for today. That's just part one. I just wanted to grease the wheel a bit here and start to get you thinking about all this magical stuff that you could be doing and experiencing and really tapping into your gifts. You have gifts. You have them. They're just waiting for you. Honestly, they're waiting for you to pay attention to them because they're already happening a lot of the time. And you know it. You know what I'm saying. They're already happening. And so I want you to stay tuned for next week when we explore part 2 of raising your vibration and getting your woo back on. We're going to be exploring how you can work with energy, boundaries that can multiply your joy, and embracing magical thinking and abundant beliefs. And that, my friend, is going to be worth your time because it's going to be the same thing that I just described. It's going to be an investment, right? Listening to this podcast is an investment. It gives back to you. When you put your attention on something, it will start replicating. And so paying attention to this stuff is really good. Even though some of my episodes, I'm talking about hard stuff, things we need to really look at, but it's still replicating this spiritual growth that needs to happen, right? And if you become awakened to the work that you need to do and you see these negative things happening, because, you listen to the podcast and you're like, wow, this is really true for me, it allows you to make different choices and raise your vibration up and act accordingly. So we can do this. It's going to be, it's a journey worth taking, right? It is a journey worth taking because it can be life-changing for you down the road. And one last thing, if you could take a moment and subscribe if you haven't already and rate the show, I would be so appreciative. It would mean so much to me. For those of you that have left a heartfelt review, I want you to know that you made my day, my week, my month, actually. It means so much. Every time I get one, I get a little ding and I find out that I got a review, and it's like, oh, it just makes my whole day. So just know that if you took the time, it wasn't lost. I'm just so appreciative. In some ways, I wish we could write back to each other, right? I wish I could respond and say thank you. So I hope you have a beautiful week. I look forward to connecting next week. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to Into the Work Therapy for Empaths and Seekers. Don't forget to grab your free gift, your Shadow Work Transformation Bundle at michellepoverman.com. I've included everything you need to get started to break through the patterns of self-sabotage and finally start to heal the parts of yourself that are getting in the way of truly reaching your potential. From a powerful meditation designed to help you meet and embrace your shadow self, to the guide that's full of curated prompts and important questions to support you on this journey. This really can be the work for you to unmask the root cause of all the issues you've been experiencing, honestly, and start to feel free to believe in yourself and go for what you want. The link for this free bundle is in the show notes. And if you like this episode, I would be so grateful if you could take a moment and rate, click and follow, and leave a review. Of course, you can always follow me on socials at Michelle Poverman. And keep in mind, as you embark on your journey from spark to brilliance, remember, the universe is always conspiring in favor of your awakening. Everything that's happening is in support of you lighting your own fire within. So until we meet again, may your path be well lit and your heart be guided. Shine bright, seekers. Until next time.